So my mic stand broke, so I'm stuck holding my mic today. It was literally like a last minute thing, but yeah.
You're doing good.
Yeah. So tonight we've got Holly and JD on from Magazine 6000.
Hello.
And this is episode 148?
147.
140. Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay, I thought it was
Plug the numbers into the title, so I think I'm right.
Okay, all right, yeah. Episode 148 then. So we've got the managing chief,
Editor, whatever.
director,
boss bitch.
Editor-in-Chief, founder, originator.
Yeah,
Like,
see,
come
yeah.
on. You can call yourself whatever you want.
Yeah.
I feel like Jay could have their own editor title as well. Whatever you want. Like,
Yeah.
And then we've
editor
also,
of the vibe.
Monitor of vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then we've also got JD, who's the #1 journalist, right?
Pretty much.
All right. You know, so
Well, there you go. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Now you can claim it.
Yeah.
You can own it.
we've got this on record too now.
That's it. It's live on camera.
Change your email signature after
Yeah.
this.
So,
XOXO, the best.
what's Magazine 6000, and how did you girls make it and get into it, and like what's the story behind it in a way?
Magazine 6000 is something that I had an idea about back in 2019. I had finished up working with Dircksey magazine, which was ECU's student magazine for a while, and we developed over the time that I was there a bit of a arts and culture vibe.
So
and
Dircksey magazine?
Dircksey, yeah, which is
Okay.
Edith Cowan's middle name. Fun
Okay.
fact.
Oh, wow,
Edith
okay.
Dircksey Cowan.
Well, there you go. You learn something new every day.
And yeah, we're pretty established in the Perth arts scene. We're invited to review all sorts of stuff from music to theatre to film. And I really miss doing that. And it's, yeah, the name came to me, 6000, postcode of Perth.
Yep.
And I bit the bullet in 2020 and saved up all of my COVID money from not going out, and got some artists I'd worked with at ECU who were graphic design students. They'd graduated as well, and they'd worked with me previously at Dircksey. So the website is completely custom made.
Okay.
Shona Wong is one of the graphic designers.
So you didn't actually like make
It's
the
not a
magazine.
template.
Yeah, so like from
Yeah.
Artsy or
Yeah,
whatever
so
they're
it
called.
was
Yeah.
a really pretty extensive process of building the visual of it.
Yeah.
And I was really annoying to work with because I was just like, give the vibe of like someone who's like glamorous but hungover, like cool.
That's exactly how I was. Yeah.
You know, they've got some smudged eyeliner, maybe they're wearing some faux fur because they wouldn't wear real fur, I don't know. So I was annoying to work with from a graphic design perspective, but they nailed it. I love the logo and the look of the website. Hopefully it's
Yeah.
not glitching right now. And then Sean Flett built the website off of the two designers brief, and we launched, maybe it was actually 2021. Yeah, we launched in 2021, and yeah, slowly built up from there, and we're still growing, and Jay came on board pretty early on.
Yeah, it's funny like you say that because I do not consider you a pain to work with at all. Like you were just like, hey, so Holly and I, so Holly and I met when we're at uni, and she wanted to. You're doing broadcasting or something?
Yeah.
So she wanted to interview me when I was like president of the Queer Collective, and then. That was great, and we did another interview when I was running the Ducks of ECU Facebook
That was the
page.
first one we did. Was
Yeah.
the duck one. Like Jay ran this duck page about the ducks at ECU. It was a Facebook page, and everyone was like, "Who's behind this?" And I don't know how I found out it was you. Did I just message you?
Yeah, sorry.
Is it still up? The duck
It
page?
is, yeah, Ducks of ECU.
Ducks
it's on
of ECU.
Facebook. I think it's still on Insta, Campus Quackers or something.
Here we go.
Yeah, Ducks of ECU. And
Very
it was just
nice.
like people would send me photos of the ducks. And because why the hell not? Like,
Yeah.
and it was, I think I did it around when the baby ducks were.
Oh my god, it was
coming out.
iconic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was really reluctant. I was like, oh, I don't
Yeah,
know.
you didn't want to reveal your identity
I
as
was
the
like,
person
I don't,
behind.
Like, I'm not that kind of person. Like, I don't like, I was just like, I don't know. And then, I interviewed you and Adam, and I was like, actually, no, this is fine. Like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And we just like stayed in touch.
I think we must have met through the guild though.
Yeah, it was through the guild. I think, it was the president. It was Stuart who reached out to me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he was like, "Do you want to?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Reveal your what were you were saying you were the queen of quack?
Yeah. So yeah, and then Holly and I kind of kept in touch, and she just put the word out saying she was looking for like reviewers and contributors, and it's actually something that I've always wanted to do. Like,
because is that what you were studying at ACU?
no, not even. Like, I'm studying something totally different, and then when I tell people about my day job or my studies or whatever, I'm like, don't even, like, my favorite thing people ask me is like, what's your creative outlet? Because I'm like, that's what you should be asking. Like, don't ask me what I do for a job, because that ain't it. Like, that's just not what's going to get the intrigue. Yeah, like that's not what's going to get the interesting responses, you know. So yeah, like I just get to go to shows and write about them, and you know, I've always gone to a lot of, you know, ballet and opera, you know, like live music, you know, when a lot of the big acts come to Perth. I have about 100 band shirts, I think, at least.
Really? 100 band shirts?
Yeah, I counted them last, and it was just over 100.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so
That's
like
dedication.
yeah, I've always just like gone to gigs, and anytime someone comes to a gig with me, I'll be like, okay, oh my gosh, I need a download. Like, that was amazing that we just saw. And so I was like, great, now I can just do what I do anyway, but just put it in words on a website instead. So yeah, and I really like your approach, because it's just like, you know, you just put the post up and say, yep, this is the date, here's a blurb of the show.
I have a contributors group, and it's pretty much open. A lot of people get in touch with me and say, I like the website, I like what you publish.
Yeah,
I would love to
it's a very cool
be
website.
involved. And it's people from all walks of life as well. I do have a good mix of people who are in the arts and not in the arts. And I say, cool, join this Facebook group, and I just post when I get press releases through inviting us to various events. It's a lot of theatre at the moment.
Yeah.
But we would review anything.
But still, like, from what I've seen, I actually haven't seen many like publications on theatre kind of stuff. It's always bands and gigs and like festivals and music, rather than the actual like theatre side of things and like the artistic, like cultural side of things.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of give anyone a go as well, like pretty much if because there are arts publications out there that do review theatre, but they review a lot of bigger shows or shows that are put on by the opera, the ballet, the State Theatre Company, and we review those as well. But we do the small people too. We don't discriminate. I don't go, oh my god, no, like who are you? I think that's actually exciting when you do get to go to someone's show who's maybe never performed before. It's their first show. And, it's a really cool experience.
What was the inspiration then for creating the magazine? Because like from the little bio thing that you sent us before, it's like it seems like you have worked in broadcasting.
So I studied broadcasting and then started working in it with the ABC, and I've worked for a few other publications and channels and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And this is the journalism outlet I've got now. I don't work full-time as a journalist, but I still consider myself an arts journalist. Like Jay was saying, you know, what's your creative outlet?
Exactly. Like when you, like what excites you? You know, like people,
Well, I was going to say, that's the thing though. It's like, you know, when it's a job, it's a job. But when it's a hobby and it's a creative outlet, that's when it's more fun, right? And it's more
for sure.
enjoyable.
And I have a habit of monetizing hobbies, and I need to stop. So I'm a bit hesitant about ever, you know, involving advertising with the magazine. It would make some things a bit easier, because right now if I do need to fix something on the website, I've got to self-fund that. If I want to do like an event, I've got to self-fund that, and you know, I can do that to a certain extent. So I'm not really sure what the future will look like in terms of whether we just keep it as, you know, a casual chill thing, everyone just puts in their own involvement, or whether we do look for some sort of funding. I don't have the capacity to think about that right now. I've got too many other things going on.
Have you thrown an event yet for it at all? Or?
I organised a launch event. We'd already launched, but we wanted to do an event.
It's a launch event 2.0 then.
I had at the time an ECU student who was sort of my like second editor, Cameron Carr, who works for the ABC as well, and works for the ABC now. He was at uni at the time, and so we organised this event. We got catering, we ordered macaroons and everything, and then we got hit with lockdown, and the only other thing I've done is just really for the contributors saying like, hey, if you want to come by the Blue Room Bar, have a toasty, I'll buy you a toasty, and just kind of keep tabs that way. I think it will probably be a bit like that going forward.
The Blue Room Bar. I mean, we were talking about this place before,
It's a
but
theatre.
it's a
Yeah.
theatre. Can we look that up as well, Mitch?
You know what? I've gone to a handful of shows there that I've reviewed. It was
More
only
than a handful.
oh yeah, maybe a dozen or so.
So whereabouts is it though?
So it's in Northbridge. You know where the cultural centre is near like Pika.
Oh,
Band
yeah, yeah.
green.
Yeah, it's right near there.
Oh, is that the one where you got the big screen, but you go on the left, and it's like a little. That's a
Yeah,
theatre thing?
there's like it's next to Peak. It's got like an alleyway. So that's the
Yeah, the little outlet.
Yeah.
I've always wondered what that was. I thought that was
Yeah.
a cinema.
You
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
come in.
Yeah,
you gotta
yeah.
come in.
That's-
It's an awesome venue. They give so many opportunities to emerging artists. It's pretty much an emerging artist venue predominantly. But yeah, they do $10 toasties. Shout out to the Blue Room.
Very nice. yeah.
And the people behind the bar are always lovely. So
They are.
It's
Yeah,
a good
the staff as well.
It's
like
a good
behind
little
the
spot.
box office, and yeah, they're
It's
really
actually
lovely
run
people.
by a lot of volunteers. All their ushers are volunteers, and then they have a core team of paid employees. But they're, I think, another organisation that works predominantly off of grants and that sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
it's awesome
okay.
to support them, and they give so many people in Perth their first shot at theatre, which is really cool.
It's funny because they kind of gave me like some of my first goes at writing as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that real kind of community vibe about it.
That's good though, because there needs to be
yeah.
outlets like this
Yeah.
for places. you
Yeah.
know, well, places like this
Yeah,
for
there you
people.
go.
Like,
Yeah.
to help
Summer
them out.
nights. So
Yeah, totally. And that's like the essence of reviewing for me as well, is it's just about promoting other people's
Yeah.
things. So my creative outlet is promoting other people's creative outlet and just
Yeah.
putting perspective on what they make. And it's like, I think people used to ask me, are you creative? And I used to say no, and I think so many people do, right? Because we have this notion of perfectionism, and it's like, oh, well, I don't make money off it, or I've never showed anyone. But it doesn't mean you're not creative. It doesn't mean you're not, expressing yourself or doing cool stuff. And then when I started writing, I was like, actually, yeah, that's my creative outlet. Like that's something I've actually always done. And even before it was ever published anywhere, it's still, it's always been a thing that I've enjoyed doing. And I think a lot of us just don't tap into that. So I really like the fact that my creative outlet is just like basically promoting other people and what they do, because I don't go in there going, like, I'm not a critic. Like Holly and I were saying before, like I don't really know a lot about theatre or anything, so I don't go in trying to use technical terms or anything like that. I'm just like, this is what I saw, this is what happened, this is how it made me feel, this is what I think other people might get out of it.
But
and
that's the way it should be though, right?
Yeah,
Because
totally.
we were talking about it before. It's like people sometimes like nitty pick, like food critics in a way. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, the food was not like this or not like that. But the thing
It's always
is, like,
difficult with critics though, like because you need a bit of both. You
Yeah.
need somebody who really knows what they're talking about to give you the very fine details, but then
Yeah.
you also want sort of like an everyman person to go,
Yeah.
which is probably going to reflect 80% of what people will feel about the show.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I guess, because the Blue Room is very up and coming, and a lot of the stuff that I go to is like, those are the people that just, I feel like you're just kind of wanting to connect,
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it might be some of their first time that they've done it. So it's this really big daunting thing. And it's like, I'm just really honored to be able to be there and just watch
Yeah.
it and give them just as honest feedback as I can. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not looking for anything in particular. I'm not looking for, any kind of like prowess or anything. I'm just like, oh, okay, what's gonna happen? Like, what are you gonna give me? I'm just open and see what happens.
I think the magazine will always serve that purpose to give an honest audience perspective. We might have people, and I do have people who are working actors in Perth who write reviews, and they do have that little bit more of a technical writing style, but Magazine 6000 is also about helping emerging writers
Yeah.
as well as it's about helping emerging artists and reviewing
so
their
it's-
work, giving them an opportunity, interviewing them. For a lot of artists that we interview, it's their first time ever being interviewed, which I think is really cool. And I like the idea that we can kind of be like a little soft launch.
Yeah, totally.
but that's
yeah.
good though. That's the way. Like, that's really good because that's it's promoting, it's helping out instead of
You
going.
must feel
there-
the same way though.
Pardon?
You must feel the same way.
No, yeah, exactly. Like even doing this, I
Yeah.
was going to link this back to this. It's like
Yeah.
doing this podcast with the 147, 148 now
that's crazy.
guests on, with doing that, it's all about helping them get their name out there. Because as a DJ, you know, you make a page, you see the photos, you see the videos of them on stage, but you don't get to know who they actually are in a way.
Yeah.
But then, like, I can imagine a similar thing in a way, kind of like when you go see the theatre, you know, go see their show. It's the first time they've ever done that. So you can kind of see that how they're trying to, like, express themselves and do it to make them stand out in a way.
We've got a little bit of a philosophy. I sort of let writers do whatever they want. I say, you know, write whatever you want. Don't make it too long. You know, stick to maybe under 800 words. But, you know, if you feel like you need to be passionate and let it out, let it out. But the other thing is, when you're reviewing, especially emerging artists, there's no need to be mean. There's no need to be nasty. Don't put, just because you're reviewing, don't put on this, like, I'm a critic hat. And
that's amazing that you do that. Like, to actually just try and be like,
I just say, if something's obvious, like, sometimes, you know, maybe they're doing something with projection and something's a little off. Chances are the director's sitting in the room when you're watching the show and they've seen that it's off as well.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to point that out. They know, they're not idiots.
That's exactly
if it's something fundamentally wrong with the structure or like something that you think could be improved that's more embedded in the piece, maybe then you can talk about it. But I just think don't bother pointing out the obvious wrongs because they probably know. They probably get it.
Yeah.
Like
But that's the thing as well, like standing on stage when you're DJing or like you're in a band or something, if you make a slip up, you know, you get this huge overwhelming fear of anxiety and shock where it's like, I've just stuffed up. And for them to be in theatre and actually do a similar thing, like they might have, you know, might not have been able to reach a certain tone with their voice or something like that. That's it. That feeling would be hitting them. Plus the thought of like, oh, the director's in the crowd. So then if the reviewer goes off and gives them a bad, like, you know, they did this wrong, X, Y, Z, that would just be daunting. How do they continue their passion and what they enjoy when they feel like everyone's almost against them?
And that's what I want. I want people to continue to make art. I want them to continue to
It's always a learning
theatre.
process.
And I think it could really shatter a young person or an emerging artist if they got a bad review. And honestly, I rarely see bad works. I think it's a little bit different for companies that have a lot of funding behind them. They've got really experienced artists. If there are things there where you're paying $130 for a ticket and something isn't looking good, isn't sounding good, and they've got all of the capability in the world to fix that and they're not bothering, then that's a little bit different for me. But for emerging artists who are doing this maybe literally most of them are doing it out of their own pocket. We don't need to shit on them.
Of course.
That's what I like about it. It's just like, this is just something I do on the side for fun. It might be for some of them as well. And it's just got this very kind of organic feel to it, you know? And even like same with the podcast, it's like, it's just, you just enjoy doing things and promoting things that other people are doing.
Do you have a goal or an aim for Magazine 6000?
Just to keep going.
Part of the magazine was culture as well. Yeah. What exactly does that entail? Are you talking about culture in terms of just the music entertainment scene or culture generally?
A bit of that. I have some people who don't review any theatre. They don't interview people. I've got people who write long form articles about different things, or they review books. I've got one writer, Andrew Douglas, who I also met through Dircksey magazine. He was a mature age student at ECU, and he reviews books, but he does it in a way that's very it's almost not like a review. I don't know if you've read any of Andrew's stuff.
So when you say books, like how many pages are you talking? Like,
well, he reviews books, but he
reviews books.
Okay.
Not
he doesn't
writing.
We're just publishing on the magazine on the website.
It's like, whoa, go and watch a theatre and it's like 50-page review.
No, and he reviews crazy things like he reviewed this book that was about the different interpretations of the Bible and where that leaves us as a society.
Cool.
That's really diving deep.
He also reviewed this book that was highlighting these three sisters who are Australia's first international filmmakers. And he doesn't just like talk about, oh, the author did this. It's more of almost a research piece and like discussing what it means culturally. And he also is an ex-mental health nurse. I think he still does some work in that space. But he worked at places like Heathcote while it was still open, and he writes from his own perspective as well of what it was like to work at these mental health institutes.
Wow. Okay.
And it's so interesting. Like, he did one on Lemnos as well. I think that's the hospital. It's now part of Shenton College, I think. And I'll see the views go up on these articles sometimes. So people are finding them, that they're interested in these like little hidden gems. I'd love to do more about Perth's history on the magazine. That's something I would like to incorporate more.
Yeah. I think that's always a weird one, because I'm just so over colonial history. Like, I just, it's like, I feel like it's all kind of same. Like, some white dude came in and did a thing, and now like the place is named after
getting too
him.
political and straying away from the initial?
No, I don't think so. Going back to Andrew's pieces, though, I completely agree with your point about the colonial history. It's interesting. His perspective almost comes with a bit of a queer angle. So, yeah, if you type in Andrew Douglas, you might be able to see some of his work.
Yeah, if he's on the website,
he was,
I'd want to check him out.
I think, one of the founding members of UWA's like first queer society. Like, I probably shouldn't talk about how old he is. I don't know. But he sometimes slips in little anecdotes about what it was like to be a queer nurse.
Yeah.
And, the people who ended up in these institutions as well.
I mean, I put that in some of my reviews sometimes. And I mean, because I think that when you're reviewing something, you're bringing in your own experiences.
Magazine 6000, I think that might help. But you can also search on the website for our. If you go to go back to the Behind the Horror Story, that's one of his latest ones, and the Dashing.
So, how many views do you get per review? Sometimes.
Do you know what? I don't usually look at the.
I was going to say, I'm kind of glad I
good.
don't know. I don't want to
That's
think
a good
about
thing to do.
I don't care.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, though.
Sometimes I look at the charts sometimes just when I go in to upload things, and I'll be like, whoa, like that got a lot, or like, oh, that's a shame that one didn't do as well. But
There's
it's
his bio.
usually.
He's very arty. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What a picture.
And yeah, so you see Heathcote Hospital After Dark, so that's one. It talks a little bit about the experience. Oh, there we go. He's talking here in that pull quote about nurses like finding spots to kiss.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, you can't not bring your own personal experiences into what you do, right? That's how you connect with stuff, because that's, I mean, maybe some people want to be technical or be skilled, but I feel like ultimately it's all about connection. You
That's
just want
exactly it.
you want audiences to feel something. You want them to, and for me, when I write, it's like I want people to want to go to this show, for whatever reason, whether it's for the same reasons that I enjoyed it or whether it's something else. It's like you just want people to feel something. And so I always try and think, what kind of perspective or bias am I bringing in here that's influencing my perspective? Because it might either entice someone to go, oh, that's interesting. Like I'd love to, understand that better. Or they might go, oh, I'm not like that at all. But maybe you want to go see, like, so I did this review on a show that was like about horse girls. And so,
all the fraudulent horse girls.
Holy fuck, that was the funniest
Horse
fucking
girls?
all the fraudulent horse girls. Okay. Sorry, I
Is that up there?
I can't.
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm going to
yes.
talk about it without laughing, because the whole time I was cackling.
If you go to
Jay's
search
Yeah.
and type
just-
in all
Is
the
it one of yours, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to be in here?
Yeah, it will be. There you go. The cowgirl in the
also-
middle, third row down. Yeah. So,
I also did an interview with the director, which was pretty hilarious.
oh my God. So that was just fucking hilarious. Like, I was laughing the whole time. I'm
a bit of
looking
a
at the
synopsis
photos
about what
and
it's
I-
about?
Yeah,
I
of
can't, you
course,
have to do
yeah.
it because
All
I
right,
can't keep
so,
it straight.
yeah, I know. Just like the thought of Jay laughing at this makes me laugh. So it's about this girl. I can't remember the character's name. It was she was played by a bunch of different actors, but primarily by Elise Wilson, and she can telepathically speak to all other horse girls in the world. And there's these bullies at school who claim that they're horse girls, but she can't find them telepathically, so she knows they're fraudulent.
So a horse girl is a girl that loves horses.
Yeah, horse.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, okay.
obsessed, so
Okay,
obsessed. Like
yep.
Saddle Club, everything.
Yeah.
And halfway through the show, she goes to a swimming carnival, and sees a police horse somehow and gets kicked in the head and is then sent into this fever dream where she goes into a Cormac McCarthy novel, all the beautiful horses,
All the pretty horses,
all the
yeah.
pretty horses, and she starts to play out the novel, and it is so ridiculous. But the closing monologue was so meta. So Hannah Davidson ended up playing it's Audrey is the main character's name. She ended up playing the final Audrey, and she comes out. So we've done all the clapping. Show's over. She comes out.
Everyone's like bowing on stage, and they're all like, you know, and you think it's over.
Yeah. And so Hannah Davidson comes out and she goes, "Not only did I star in this play, but I also wrote it. It's a true story." And people are like, yeah. And then she starts talking about the funding and how it costs $300,000 to put on the Blu-ray. Talking about having a ketamine addiction. And like, then you realize it's like this.
It takes a good 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, we were like, oh, yeah. Cool. And then you're like, wait, this is part of it. Like, it's, about 10 minutes into that monologue, you're like, oh, that's part of the show. Okay, cool. Yeah. It was just the funniest thing. And like, I was a horse girl growing up. So I was like, oh, wow. I need to talk to my mum. Like, wow, if that was me, if that's what my mum dealt with, wow.
But that closing monologue was amazing because it pointed out she was doing all this stuff like making like the only way we can make change in the world is through theatre, and like just pointing fun at the fact that some people really think that, you know, this one show is going to change the entire world. And like, yeah, theatre can be an agent of change, but sometimes you can just do it for fun. That's what this show was. And I love theatre that just does fun stuff sometimes. It's like I can deal with, you know, the heavier messages, but let's just have some fun. Another really fun show was a few years ago, and I think it might have been before I started magazine. It was a show that was all done on roller skates. It wasn't Xanadu, but it was Blue Room. I can't remember the name, but I'd love that show to come back. There's like so many awesome shows that happen at the Blue Room. We've got to move on from the Blue Room. Too much promo.
So, how many writers work for you at the moment?
I would
freelance.
It's not even freelance. It's just completely like volunteer. Everyone.
Volunteer then.
Jay is probably one of my regular people who writes. Emily Smith, who has a sort of English literature background, so that's awesome. I sent Emily to all of like the Shakespeare stuff because she just knows. I've got a few Whopper people who write. I've got about 20 or so people within the contributors group, but not everyone is super regular and involved. Some people just pop up and do maybe something once or twice a year, and that's fine. There's also people who are in that group who invite us to their shows as well. So
that's actually how I got onto all the Fraudulent Horse Girls. It was Mitch.
Directed it, and I interviewed him as well for that show, and Mitch has also done reviews.
Not this Mitch.
Not this Mitch. Mitchell Whelan, who's an awesome director and playwright as well. And he's written some reviews for me in the past, and he's probably one of my more experienced theatre reviewers, I could say. A lot of my reviewers from Whopper come out of the Bachelor of Performing Arts course, which is a course that looks at all elements of performance, from writing, directing, performing, design, and it's a 3-year degree. And a lot of the BPA students go on to make works with the Blue Room. And when I first started writing about theatre, which was with Dircksey magazine, so it's like 2016, in Perth, I couldn't really recognise many Bachelor of Performing Arts students that remained in Perth and were like getting further roles within like other productions like the State Theatre Company and stuff. But now I just see them everywhere, and it's so awesome because I'm like, yes, they're so freaking talented. Not only can they act, they can write, they can direct, they can do it all.
It's amazing for that though.
Grace Chow as well is one of my well, I wouldn't say my contributor, is an occasional contributor. Grace is an actor, has been in Mystery Road on the ABC, which is been nominated for amazing things and is doing crazy stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's still awesome. In there.
See, isn't that amazing though? Because it's a similar thing with this, where it's like I get people and they've just broken out into the industry, and you see their progression.
Shoot off,
I love that. I love watching people, like watching their like creative pursuits like change and grow as people find their tastes, they find what they like, or you know. And I've seen it a lot with like with my DJ friends, where you just, you know, they'll be at a house party when, you know, it's starting to quieten down, and, you know, they'll be like, oh great, no one's on the deck, so I'm just gonna jump on and like have a mix. And it's, you know, there's been times where I've been like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna go walk into another room, but then because like, but it's not actually about playing for anyone. They're just like, they're just fucking around and just having a mix and trying it out. And then, you know, I just see them, you know, I might see them again like 6 months later at another thing. And then they've got like, they're playing totally different genres, you know, and then the next time they're playing something totally different. And it's so cool just watching people find find their niche, or find like what they're good at, or what they enjoy, you know, because it's just like, it's just really fulfilling to be witnessing that, you know. And it's not actually about whether someone ever makes money off it. It's not about, you know, success. I don't even know how you would define that. It's just really cool to watch people enjoy themselves, and it's the joy of actually just doing it and learning
like
and going,
expressing themselves.
And it's just the joy of being like, oh yeah, like maybe I don't like this, I'm gonna go try something different now. It's like, cool, do it. Like I'll be here on the sidelines, I want to see what you come up with. Like it's just really cool to see what like directions people take.
You've got a good outlet on that, you know.
Yeah,
you sort of don't hold back and just try different things, where I think some people are just like, oh, but what if, like you were saying before, what if it's not perfect? Oh, I don't want to do this thing because I'm not going to be amazing the first time round. I'm like, if you're looking for perfection, that's boring.
You're not going to find it. And that's always like, I'm always considerate of that when I'm doing reviews, because it's like, you know what, maybe this wasn't the best show that I went to, maybe nothing in particular stood out to me. Like sometimes I'll go to a show and I'll be like, yep, that was amazing. It might be an actor that stood out, it might be even the ensemble together, like everyone had really good on stage chemistry, it could be the lighting, it could be anything. But sometimes I'm just like, you know what, I just need to approach this methodically and go, okay, how was the lighting, how was the set design, how is, you know, the acting, how was this, like you know, sometimes just go through, because it's like, I just want to be able to give everyone feedback and go, okay, well, what stood out to me as an audience member on this element, you know?
Think now that we're talking about the standard of journalism at some point, I've wanted to have this conversation for a while. Obviously, this podcast being more music related has meant I haven't really been able to have this conversation. But what's your, I mean, Holly, you've worked in what I would consider traditional media, ABC. Have you noticed any sort of shift or change in the media landscape in Australia, and what effect has that had on your outfit and how you try and work alongside the more traditional media?
It's a very interesting question. I don't know if we've had any direct impact, because we just sort of march the beat of our own drum. Like, you know, if we don't have funding, we don't have to, you know, appeal to any particular person, I suppose. I do think that mainstream media is so out of touch with the general public of Australia. The fact that the majority of media is so heavily right-wing still, and it makes sense where you look at their funding is coming from, but then they turn around and act like the whole country turning red is a shock. Like, it's not to everyday Australians. I think journalists can sometimes be a little bit out of touch as well of what it is actually like to be an average person too, because they're so caught up in this world and what other journalists think. It's
the same thing with the DJ industry. Everyone just gets wrapped up in their own thoughts of just like, this is how it is, this is how you should be, instead of going, like, looking from the outsider's perspective of trying to, you know, play to the crowd, do the right thing.
Well, I guess it depends on the editorial staff, right? Because from what I know from the media, and my perspective comes from a more political anthropology style view, and that is that a lot of the journalists who are just the foot soldiers have to write in a way to appease their editor. And their editor ultimately is trying to appease their boss.
They're pushing an agenda.
That was pretty clear when recently in the West Australian they were reporting poorly on Andrew Forrest, and that's because he had a relationship fall through with Kerry Stokes around the power station remodelling, and Andrew Forrest went after the journalist who wrote that article, and she was like, no, mate, I was just doing my job.
Yeah.
I will say at the ABC, nobody ever told me what to write. I was finding my own stories, and that was like that for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
If we have a press release that comes through from the police that's, you know, relevant to us, maybe we'll report on that, but that's not even a direction. I never had my chief of staff say, you need to change this to have more of this tone. I think that sometimes people think that's
Okay.
what happens. I
That's
never
really cool,
had
though.
anyone tell me what to write, how to write it. Obviously the sub editors will format things. I should clarify that I mostly worked in radio journalism, so it's a little bit different, but I did do some online articles for the ABC. But yeah, never in the ABC, you don't get told you need to be more right wing, you need to be more left wing, and they take it very seriously. I know some people might think this, but they take it very seriously if you are perceived to have more of a leaning in any particular way. And behind the scenes, I think a lot of people would be shocked to find out what presenters really think.
No, I
Like-
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I remember back from. Do you remember the Royal Commission into the media, something or other? They had like a Royal Commission into the media. This was probably
Yeah.
maybe 2018, 2019 period,
Okay.
just before COVID. And they called Kevin Rudd to the commission, and he was basically outlining how the news for the day, the news cycle, is outlaid by the newspapers in the morning. And the newspapers are 100%, well, nearly 100% owned by the Murdoch Industries. So, Murdoch's company. And so essentially he's lining up all other media, radio, TV, you know, magazines, whatever. They're getting all their direction for their news for the day from the newspapers, which are right-leaning.
Yeah.
So that's where you have that problem. At least that's the way I understand it from the way Kevin Rudd explained
Yeah, and
Yeah.
in that style of media, that's the way it goes, is particularly for TV. Like, they'll show up and read the paper, they'll listen to the ABC reports. So I worked within a regional bureau, so we would find stories. So if I'm creating a bulletin for Tuesday morning, I would find stories on Monday that go into Tuesday. So then you have the regional TV stations listening and saying, oh, yep, that's the story we're going to pursue for tonight. So we almost set the agenda, but we did read the newspaper as well and see, is there anything we missed? Is there anything that's marked as an exclusive that we did 2 weeks ago?
I guess that begs the question then, is traditional journalism dead?
It depends on what you mean by traditional journalism.
Well, because back in the day, if being a journalist meant going out and finding the news, whereas nowadays, mainly in Australia, this is an
Yeah.
Australian problem, it seems more like they're not going out to get the issue.
I think it depends a lot
It's
on
more of a
funding.
reactionary thing.
Yeah, there are some newsrooms. There are a lot of newsrooms, particularly in commercial radio, where their journalists don't ever leave the newsroom. It's very rare for them to chase any stories. They just get press releases, they get whatever quote they need, and that's them done. Or they just do copy stories, which is them just reading off a press release. So in some ways, yes, and it is dying with so many regional papers shutting down.
Let's not throw in the AI question too.
Yeah.
I don't think AI will ever properly replace journalism.
Yeah.
As, you know,
It's the
I just
human
can't-
interaction.
Yeah, I can't imagine an AI reviewing something. Like how
how could an AI ever have this sort of conversation?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. How could you have this kind of conversation?
I think the AI that we have available to us for free on the internet isn't the AI they're talking about. Like Chat GPT, their night build or whatever they have behind the scenes, because Chat GPT on the internet is only relevant up until 2021. They don't allow it to have access to newer data, so it's kind of handicapped in that way. But their backdoor AI, I think it was maybe 7 days ago, a week or so ago, it just passed the Turing test
Yeah.
by itself as an AI.
I think it, depends why you're concerned about it, because what I write about for Magazine 6000 is just experiences of shows. And, I don't really think I want to know what an AI thinks.
Yeah.
I don't really care what an AI would have to say
That's
about
it.
it. Do you want to go in there and go, was it provocative? Did it make you feel something? And what did it bring out in you?
Exactly.
You know,
yeah. The
and-
feelings and the emotions.
Yeah. And your perspective is as much part of it. But if your perspective is, every bit of fucking data on the internet ever, then, well, great. Like, where's the nuance? Where's the, you know, like, where's that rawness? It's
Yeah.
not really telling me anything in particular. You're giving me an itemized list of what happened, and, you know, it's like, well,
Yeah.
what, and, you know, and that's not, I don't think that's what performers want. I don't
Yeah.
think they want to have that, because it's,
Well, even
like,
customers as well, like, or potential people reading the article. If they realize that an AI has written it, they probably won't want to read it
No.
exactly.
because they'll just be like, "Well, where is?"
Well, I
the
don't think
human-"
AI is being used to write articles per se.
Yeah.
I think they're using it more for like instruction and as like a tool to improve their writing. But it all leads back.
Oh, you mean like
Yeah,
writing
yeah.
emails and stuff like that?
Well, the internal stuff is whatever, but I'm talking about like you can use AI to find an interesting subject
Yeah.
and then train it to, you know, make a headline that will get the most clicks.
So, for example, just quickly, is like my roommate Jason, right? He works in a software development, software sales company, right? And since he's doing sales, he actually has to write emails, but he gets lazy, so he gets ChatGPT to write him professional emails that he physically could not write himself because he never went to uni or anything like that to be able to like put
I
the
think
words together.
if you want to present in a certain way, if you want to be perceived in a certain way, maybe that's useful, but
Yeah.
that's not why
But-
I write,
Yeah.
and that's not,
Yeah.
you know, that's not how I want reviews or even interviews to come
Yeah.
across.
And that's fair enough. I know you girls, and in the position you are right now, you don't obviously want that. You want your journalism, your articles to be as raw and as accessible as possible in that respect. But when we're talking about corporate media, and you can go and replace, you know, 800, 900 journalists and just feed it the topics for the day, and it
I don't
spits
think
out.
it will ever work.
Maybe not now,
Journalism's-
but in 10,
journalism
20 years.
operates on gossip, really. So much of my time was just spent on community Facebook pages, and I'm still removing myself from community Facebook pages where I got so many stories that I don't know how maybe it will happen.
Well, that's where
but
it'll pull
people
from.
send tip-offs
Yeah.
to journalists. A lot of it is relationship building as well. People who trust you to tell their story.
I think that's such a big part
you'll
of
be able
it.
to build a rapport.
Yeah, like it's a very kind of vulnerable to put yourself out there and like share your story or expose facets of yourself. And I don't think that people are really comfortable doing that, you know, to a non-human. You know, like you want that element. Like,
Well, I think the point is they don't know. At the end of the day, it's put out by the West Australian, and it's they could give the AI bot a name, and you would almost never know.
yeah,
With some stuff, yes, but most of the interviews will be done in person or over the phone.
Well, for interviews
yeah.
and reviews and stuff like that, it will always be a person going. But
yeah.
I'm saying instead of that data coming back with the
Yeah.
person and them sitting down and writing something out, they'll
Yeah.
come back with that data, throw it into an AI.
If it's not happening already, they will be writing copy stories. They'll be rewriting press releases. They'll be doing that sort of stuff, no doubt. And if it probably will mean that there are less jobs, but it does mean that the jobs that are there will be probably doing more authentic journalism. It means they
Yeah.
won't be
Yeah.
bogged down doing I'm just going to rewrite the press release.
But that's the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about local community magazines like yourselves, like
Yeah.
being a part of this, where it isn't, you know, the Western Australian or it isn't ABC or SBS or Channel 9 or anything like that, the big wigs. It's a local community, you know, self-funded to actually, you know, put in the real perspective from what you've experienced in a way.
yeah, that's what I really enjoy about it. It's just people wanting, I mean, you know, for at least the reviews I do, like sometimes I'll read a book or listen to a podcast or something and it will compel me to write about it. But, you know, I try to keep it more like Perth centric. So unless it's like a Perth author or something, I'm like, you know, that was great, but, you know, I would rather give it, like, keep it more Perth centric. And it's not like from any direction that Holly's given or anything like that, but it's just like those are the people that I think are going to be reading it. And
Yeah.
it's, I forgot what I was going.
Oh, it's just
Well,
keeping it local and community.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
both love living here and this
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Nothing annoys me more than when actually a few things would annoy me more, but when people diss the arts in Perth. Recently, I saw a comment on the West Australian Opera just did Into the Woods, and someone made a comment saying, "This is some of the best singing I've heard from Perth actors."
What?
Yeah.
What a backhanded
I
compliment.
know. I
Wow.
know. But
It's like
also,
saying you're pretty good for a girl. Like,
it's so insulting because we have so many people who are just so full of talent here, and do you know what? We lose them to other states. We've got a lot of people who came from here who have had to go elsewhere for work, but we've still got brilliant people here, and we've got WAPA here. We've got the West Australian Academy of Performing Arts, where so many of these people that you see in these musicals that come here and tour here they did their training here.
That's exactly
Alex
it.
and I were actually talking about this the other day. Like, there is something about the isolation of Perth, and it festers creativity.
It does.
Like,
We do some weird shit.
we really do, and I don't know how. Like, where do these ideas come from? And it's like, is it just because we're so isolated? Like, you know, that for a I would never say this, but, you know, like, for a long time, people would complain about, like, you know, artists or acts not coming to Perth or whatnot. So was it just a case of we need to make our own fun? Or is it a case of we know that, you know, there's not going to be much, you know, a few hundred Ks further north, south or east or whatever. So we just go, all right, well, what's around us? What are we going to do with what's in front of us? So I think it's just, the isolation does something to you, and it forces a sense of community. Like, it forces people to connect and try and build their local community, and it makes just really weird and interesting shit come out. Like, there's creatively, there's just some stuff that I'm like, how do you come up with that?
The isolation, it's a blessing and a curse, because you got places like America, which were built on, like, being a melting pot and having we have obviously quite a diverse collection of people here in WA as well, but because there's not a lot of that, you know, like cross talk between the states, you know, we're over here in WA and they're over there over east, and there's a lot of stuff going on between, say, Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney, but there's not a lot of connection to WA in that respect. So yes, it breeds a lot of weird creative stuff, but there's also a lot lost in not having that connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it stops
It's a unique situation.
Smaller shows from touring as much, potentially, because it's not as easy.
That's it, yeah.
Whereas in the UK, you could probably quite easily tour
big shows
around,
as
because
well.
you just hop on a train or you drive a truck, you know, with your set in the back. So maybe that's a potential downside.
That's it. It's the population as well. Like,
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I think about why people just come out of the woodwork, basically, and they go off and become huge stars, like Heath Ledger and, you know, like all the big names, is because, like, you know, when you're born in somewhere like, you know, Sydney or like New York, or it's like really dense population, it's like the chances of trying to, like, you know, go out and stand out amongst everyone else almost.
Yeah.
Because, like, with here, like, you know, we've only got a population of 1.2 million, but that's in the whole of WA. And so then I really think that, like, people that, you know, they go and study at WAPA, and then the opportunities are there for them to try and take on, like, you know, local community things, and actually, like, it really helps their interest and pushes them. Because, like, I could imagine, we'll say, like, New York City. What's the population of New York? Could you look that up? Where it's like, you know, it's everyone trying to have the same vision, the same idea, the same goal, but then they're all working together. And then it's like what we were talking about before with broadcasting, where you're stepping on each other's toes sometimes, trying to get, like, the better article or do the better thing.
Yeah.
8.4 million.
Yeah.
But
New York.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where, like, I kind of think it could potentially be with Perth, because we're so small, so isolated, but we've just got so much potential and opportunity here.
I feel like, you know how things, events, artists, whatever, they get popular and then people go, oh, they've changed, and they become mainstream. I think that's one of the things I like about Perth, is that it's
it doesn't
very
really
kind of small.
happen.
Yeah, it doesn't really happen here. Like,
Yeah.
we're so, like, small and isolated that it's just, you know, what option do you have but to support the art and the things being made around you, you know? And it's not a case of, like, oh, there's nothing better coming. It's not. Like, there's so many talented people, but the thing is that it's not about, like, the people that are making stuff, the things we're saying, it's not about the success, it's not about the ticket sales, it's just, you know, it's just passion, and it's just people wanting to like express themselves or create something cool or meaningful or interesting. And so it's just completely raw. There's no pretension. There's not, you've got nothing to prove. And you know, if you do, you can go elsewhere, and
exactly,
that's awesome.
And people do that. They do go elsewhere, but we've got people in Perth who are some of the best actors, some of the best musicians I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But they've made a conscious decision to stay here for whatever reason, and that's totally
It is a
valid.
great place to live.
Yeah.
It's an awesome place to live. I lived in Sydney so briefly before COVID shut it all down. And I came back to Perth with a new appreciation of it, you know.
That's it. A lot of people just, you know, they move away and then they realize that, wait a minute, it's just apartment blocks and it's just skyscrapers everywhere. And, and we're just a big country town, basically.
Well, literally in Sydney, I couldn't believe that nobody thanked the bus driver when they would get off the bus. And I was like, I'm going to start a movement. Whereas here, like, if you don't thank the bus driver, like, what are you doing? You're so rude.
Exactly
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like they rush to get a train when another one is coming in 2 minutes, and I was like, you guys don't know how good you have it. You could be waiting an hour and a half. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So we've got around 10-15 minutes left, but I really want to discuss this. Like, so Jay, do you have
5 minutes?
No, we'll do 10. So, do you ever interview people at all?
I did it for the first time a couple of weeks ago. I interviewed Sam Casely, aka Big C, for for an art exhibition that she had. I think it's closing this week.
That's on the website as well, right?
Yeah.
Can we pull that up?
Yeah.
at Livid Skate.
Yeah, at Livid Skate in Scarborough. So Big C and Birdie Louise are two local visual artists who just did this amazing exhibition in at this cafe in Scarborough. And
this the one?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, Notions of Home. And it was really cool I didn't know what to expect, because normally when I go and review a show, I'm like, all right, what do you got? But
because you usually sit in the audience, right, and watch the show and then put it after.
Yeah, so it was a completely different experience.
Yeah.
And because I didn't know what to expect. And there's just endless possibility of where the conversation could go. What are you going to talk about? And, you know, it's like because I didn't necessarily go in with an agenda going, oh, this is what I want to talk about. Because I'm like, well, it's their thing. Like, it's not my thing to, like, what do you want to talk about? Tell me anything, whatever you want.
It's very
people to
conversational. It's a really fun interview.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, and I think that's what I enjoyed, was that it was that really like back and forth. It wasn't like you give me something and I receive and then review. It was like, okay, cool. Like, where's this going to go? Like, what, you know?
But see, that's why I love this. Because that's exactly what we're doing. We're just having a casual
it's so
chat,
luxurious to be able to spend time interviewing someone. I try to keep my interviews when I'm interviewing an artist for like 15 minutes, especially if they're in a production where they're getting paid. So a lot of publicists will say, well, they're on the clock, right? So you've only got 15 minutes with them. And then at the ABC, the radio journo, I would do interviews within like under 5 minutes. Like get a politician on the phone. I've got 3 questions for you.
Yeah.
Like average time would be like 4 minutes.
I've had a band on Jonah and the Giants, and they got interviewed by Triple J, and they said that doing this was 10 times more fun than doing a Triple
Totally,
J.
yeah. And that's why I wanted to do this, because like you just get to sit and have a chat and get to know people and what they do. And I would much rather this. Like, I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, because they were telling me, like, with Triple J, it's like they'd get asked a question like, you know, how was the band formed? And then they have 30 seconds to answer it. But when they're just getting into it, then it's next question.
And that's the recorded version.
Yeah.
The version that might air has been edited down extensively.
That's it. And that's where I really think it's not right in a way. Because, like, I mean, sure, it fits into their programming time in a way. But at the same time, it's just like, it's so edited down that it's not who they are in a way. It's like, it's just a short little snippet that tries to portray, okay, this is the best bit, this is that best bit. Instead of just being like a free-flowing interview like what we're doing.
Yeah, like, how do you capture someone's essence when you're putting them on the spot like
that?
You
don't. You simply don't.
Yeah, you can't. And I like that. I like having space to do that. It's just so much more fun to be able to go, you know what, you're not here to perform. You're not, like, even like when I'm going to a show, it's like, you know what, they're trying to do the best they can. Whereas like interviews can just be so much more relaxed and enjoyable, and you get to see the process behind, you know, whatever is created. Like, you can go see a show, you can go do it, like go to a party or do a thing. But it's really, I really love the behind the scenes stuff where it's like, how do you do what you do? Like, why do you do what you do? Like, why do you, because for me, it's like, it's not about money. And for most people, it's not. Like a lot of the people that I talk to anyway, it's like, so why did you want to do it? And I love hearing about people's like motives.
Yeah.
I love that part of it, yeah, because it's just, and it's interesting because you're trying to bring out someone else's voice when they're not giving you anything, like with the show, it's like, okay, cool, here's something that they're presenting and there's a lot of thought that's put into it. But when you're having a conversation with someone, and that's one thing that I didn't know how I was going to go with that, because I was like, how am I going to write this thing that captures their personality as much as mine? And how do I facilitate a conversation by not driving it too much, because that's what I'm more than happy to do that. Like I can carry a conversation, I often do, and I will just kind of keep talking because there's just this endless flow of thoughts. And so it was really cool to be like, okay, oh, all right, I'm just gonna, what have you, like I just have to sit and listen. And that was just completely different. It was something I've never done before.
I hope you keep doing more interviews.
I do actually. Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this interview right now on the podcast is because I want to do something in the magazine for Alex. I want to interview the interviewer.
That would be amazing. I'd love that.
And because it's just so fucking meta. I love that because it's like you and I met through doing interviews,
and the only time we see each other.
Like hung out. We've been needing to get a drink since the magazine launched.
I think like we've like walked past each other at times and be like,
yeah, like we haven't actually. And I was joking on the Facebook post for this. I was like, oh great, we can get a new photo for the first time in like however many years because we haven't seen each other. And so I'm really excited to learn more about the art of interviewing, I guess, and like interview the interviewers, because it's such a interesting thing where it's like you want to put people at ease and you want to give people a platform, but you also need to kind of prompt them and and like your personality is as much a part of it as well. So for the interview that I did with Sam, I was like, okay, so I remembered all these like interviews in Rolling Stone magazine that I'd read where you feel like you're in the room. And you go, oh, like we're in this hotel room. And, I was surprised at how effortlessly they flipped their hair back and things like that. And it sounds like, and you're like, oh yeah, they're just humans doing regular things. And that's what someone did tell me like what the style was called, or some like prominent journalist that does that. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to I want people to feel like they're in the room there with me, having the conversation that I had, and so it's like, what did it feel like to be there, and what capturing their essence, but how did they make me feel, and how did I get them comfortable as well, and how did we facilitate this conversation? Like, how did we let these thoughts come pouring out, and that's because for me, it wasn't so much like question answer, but it's like, no, like what's gonna...
It is so rare to be able to do that with people. I sometimes get the time to do it. I'd love to interview more artists. I think the last time I did an interview like that was with Sunmi Clyburn, who's another magazine contributor, but it's a artist in Perth, singer, beautiful human all around. I just went to her studio. It was at Paper Mountain, I think, when that was still open. Did you ever go there?
No.
Like on William Street, it was upstairs. It was gorgeous. And we just I was interviewing her while she was making coffee and that sort of stuff. But there are certain parameters. As much as we have freedom to do this stuff, when I have artists I want to speak to or I agree to through a publicist, is, you've got 15 minutes. So my last question usually is there anything else you want to say? Which is a very, very journalist question, but sometimes you get the answer you want within that. And
then sometimes they
go, no,
that's
and you're like, cool.
Yeah.
I guess that's the difference between media that, I think what Mitch was talking about earlier, a lot of it is media that is output focused, or is it media that's just expression focused, or is it just community focused? And that's the difference with things like Magazine 6000, things like the Infra-Red podcast, is that we're just here to, promote other people's creations. And exactly. No, and I love that. Someone asked me the other day if I would ever do this as a job, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I want to. Like, I don't want it to be a job. I don't want it to be a chore.
I want to play by my own rules. I've created this opportunity, because I wanted to do this my own way. I wasn't going to have another opportunity to do this under any other format. So you just create your own opportunity.
Yeah, create what you want. If there's something that you wish was out there and it's not, go make it, go do it, you
That's
know.
it.
And like, I think maybe it's a bit daunting for us to say that because like Magazine 6000 is very kind of polished and, you know, like you come in here and it's like, oh, wow, you guys have all this set up and it looks like really intimidating where you're like, well, shit, I don't have the money for all that. But it's like, you don't need it. You just need to have an idea.
And you can also reach out to other people who are doing the stuff you
Yeah.
like.
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like everyone is happy to, like, people love to connect and love to meet other people who do similar things, you know, like no one is trying to hoard the platform. No one's trying to, you know, hoard they don't want to be the only magazine or the only podcast or the only anything. They're just like,
Just
they just
part of
happen.
it,
Yeah. It's like, if you happen to be cool, but it's like, yeah, you just want to be part of something. And that's all it is really. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not about anything in particular.
So just before we wrap up then, so similar thing for you, Holly, then. So like, what is your experience with interviewing people? Because as you said before, it's like you've been to Paper Mountain, it was called, right?
Paper Mountain,
And
yeah.
then it's like, you know, a 15-minute interview, but then,
Oh, no, that was like, an interview I got to do for hours.
oh, really?
But
Like, where did it all begin? Just, yeah.
with interviewing,
Yeah, like, what was your first interview actually
I
like?
can't remember my first interview. I've done probably thousands of
Oh,
interviews
really?
because it's, yeah, so I've got a bachelor in broadcasting journalism and then a postgraduate advanced diploma in broadcasting. So yeah, thousands of interviews because sometimes you do multiple a day when you're in the newsroom and things you forget.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah.
Things you want to forget.
Yeah. I used to, when I was writing for Dircksey magazine, I used to do very long interviews with people, but it wasn't like this.
Yeah.
It was still
Like on campus at all? Or?
sometimes on campus. It was mostly with other artists, and I would end up speaking to people for like 40 minutes, and it didn't always need to be that long.
Yeah, okay.
And it wasn't you know, this kind of vibe because I think it changes, like what Jay was saying, the intent. You know, are you doing this because you just want to
Yeah.
you know, create something, or is there an output? So these 40-minute interviews were often generated through publicists asking me to interview an artist or something like that. So it didn't, I wasn't really in my flow yet.
Did you ever feel that sometimes you ran out of time as well? When you like couldn't get the content that you needed? Or that it
Sometimes,
was-
or I've only ever had one really difficult interview, and unfortunately I honestly don't remember many of my interviews.
That's fair.
My one difficult interview I had was with a performer. I won't say which show, but it was a touring show, so
Yeah.
it was at Crown, and this person just gave me nothing,
Really?
and yeah, like one word responses, and I don't know if they were shy or anything, but it was like pulling teeth, and I was like, you're an actor, like surely you can talk, please. Yeah, I think that was the one time I was like, I don't feel like I have enough. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have enough.
Then from your experience of doing thousands of interviews, like what is the process in a way? Like how do you go in, like, I mean, say for example, right, Mitch always gets me to try and write show notes, but I love going in freestyling and
I
just
do.
like asking anything.
I'll have a few dot points, but you've really got to listen. And if
Yeah.
you don't listen, the talent will know.
Yeah.
They'll know that you're not listening to them and haven't picked up on something that could, you know, send you down a different path or is actually the key story.
Yeah.
So listening is so key. I think that's the biggest
And common
thing.
sense and just being able to come up on the spot with a retort or
And
Or
also
prompts,
just
yeah.
giving just silence as well. Sometimes people will you know, just pause because they're thinking, and you'll be like, oh, I've got to fill in something, or I'll go in for the next question, and then they'll
Yeah.
start again. In broadcasting, we're taught to actually not make any noise when you're talking to someone unless you really need to interject. So you don't
Okay.
even make agreeing sounds because we're making audio for news, right? So you don't want to be like, oh yeah, then like it's a
Totally.
politician like
Yeah.
giving like a major announcement. And yeah, so I have like these things that are ingrained in me a little bit, and
That's so interesting though, because
I'm slowly like allowing myself to be like, I can make agreeing sounds.
Yeah.
I've
I can do
always
that.
tried to avoid silence because like when we first started doing this, the first 20, 30 episodes, every time I watched, like I'd always watch them back, right? But anytime there was silence, I'd kind of pick up and it's like, yeah, that's just dead air. That's not good because like
Yeah.
we're on live on camera.
I think
We've got the
If
video
there's a difference
aspect.
when you're live, I think.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
depends on the format, I think. Like this, you know, you want it to be engaging and it's got to be more of a continual flow.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I mean, I guess a lot of the interviews you've done have been kind of different, but for, you know, if interviewing to write about it, you know, for a magazine, I think that's a bit of a mix of both where it's like, cool, you want to keep it flowing, you want to get the ideas going, you don't necessarily have, I mean, for me, it's like, I didn't necessarily have a finite amount of time where I go, okay, I've got 15 minutes or I've got 40 minutes to get everything out of them. But it's like, but I want to make sure that there are ideas flowing, you know? And so, you know, so the silence, it didn't matter too much if there was moments of silence, but, and I'm pretty bad with that anyway.
Holly, help me out with this. Let Alex know it's good to have a bit of background on the person that you're interviewing, right?
Yes.
I feel like
mean, I always read the blurb.
You're trying to, what are you trying to say?
Yeah,
What's the motive?
In one stone, why not?
Just
Well,
get out and look, for perspective, I was actually really impressed with your professionalism, Mitch, because when I like reached out, I was like, hey, I think it'd be great for like for you guys to talk to Holly and about Magazine 6000. And you're like, all right, cool, here's a bunch of topics. Do you you know, do you want to talk about this? When's it going to be this? I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is a
I love
well-oiled
people
machine.
who make it happen. You know?
Yeah. Mitch was just like, all right, here's the date. Like,
realised
here's
I was
the top.
doing that much.
No, it's great. Like,
No, you're an awesome
Yeah, 'cause
producer.
I
You
never
make it
do it.
happen.
that's what you want, because like I feel like if it was up to like us, we're just like, yeah, just, you know, see what happens. Like I think a very similar approach of like, yeah, just let the conversation happen, see what comes up,
See
you
where
know.
we go.
Yeah, let it
See,
be organic.
To be
but-
fair though, whenever I approach people that I've never met before or any like just message them cold on Instagram, right? Then I'll give them like, you know, maybe it's kind of like a little mini essay, almost like a little paragraph where it is probably like maybe 150 words, 200 words explaining it's like, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what the who, what, when, where, why, how.
And you're obviously reaching out to them for a reason, right?
Yeah,
So you
that's
would
it.
know a bit about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And just do my research and go, okay, well, they seem to be really popping off. That band's popping off in Perth. I wonder if they're interested. They say yes, but then, you know, then they start
Yeah.
asking
Who's
questions.
your dream interview?
Dream interview?
Yeah, who would you, if anyone?
No. Honestly, I
Yeah.
dream interview.
I think like what's his name, DJ Hornet or whatever, part of Pendulum.
Oh,
For
yeah.
For you, DJ Hornet.
Well, yeah, I'm just pulling names out of the top of my head. Or
Keith
the guys from
Richards.
Slumberjack. That'd be cool to interview as well.
I would love to interview Keith Richards.
Any like stage manager,
See, that's what I'm more
maybe a
interested
taxi
in.
driver.
Yeah, like I'm
Yeah.
interested in the behind the scenes people because they
Yeah.
like they see how it works. Everyone loves this idea of like the glamour and all that behind it, but it's like, yeah, but what about all the
the
like,
processing,
the
yeah.
process of like, you know, all the rehearsals, all the hours you spend like putting something together. Like that's more
But that-
impressive. Like those people I find are the more like they have more interesting stories.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Like, there's two examples I'll bring up. So there's a girl called Emma Haynes. So she now works at Lab 6 as a vocal coach for singing and stuff. But she actually helps create, direct, and produce Whopper shows.
Oh, cool.
So with that, it's like the thought process behind of like,
Yeah.
you know, so you want to do this show, but what are the do's and the don'ts and what can you do and how do you make it successful and the whole lot. It was amazing talking
Yeah.
to her.
Yeah.
She does like opera things and all sorts of crazy
You're
stuff.
so right. It's all the behind the scenes. Like, you know,
Yeah.
people are going to hate that I say this, but I was listening to 6PR the other day. And Gary Adstead, who's an amazing journalist, he was interviewing a publicist who's been in the game for decades. So has like literally like used to take records into radio stations.
Oh wow.
So that's the kind of, it's those
Yeah.
behind the scenes stories. And because a lot of artists, especially when they get big, they're very restricted about what they can say. And there's a very clear intent. It's publicity. And sometimes
it.
they want to keep things reserved.
And that's what I like about interviewing more behind the scenes people, right? Because they are not the public facing. They're not
Yeah.
the, you know,
They don't
they're
have
not.
media training.
Yeah, well, but they're not the brand. Like it's not necessarily like their brand is in like what they do. Like their work kind of speaks for itself, you know.
Yeah.
So it's less about, oh great, another interview I've got to do where I've got to like try and convey all of these things about you know, a production or something, it's like that is a lot. But when you can just catch people who aren't used to that, you get to see a completely different side of it, and that's what I really enjoy. And there's less kind of ego, and
that's it.
Yeah.
See, like the other guy that I interviewed, right, Davo, who sometimes goes to Quigley parties.
Oh yeah.
And so it turns out he like
his DJ name is Desynth.
yeah, Desynth, yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It was wild because I got him to come on because he got signed to a record label, right?
Yeah,
but
sick.
before we started, like maybe because I got him to rock up an hour earlier, so we're having beers, hanging out with your mate, and then he's just like, I don't know if it's important, but you know, like when Simple Minds went on their world tour, I was their roadie. And I was like, how is that not important?
Yeah, like
what?
yeah, that's the kind of shit I want to hear.
And he went to like 42 different countries. So Damo, who was sitting there, my other producer, was looking up every single country he's going to, and we're just talking about like, so wait, you went to Russia, and like, what was it like there? Oh, I got to spend 2 days there, and like, you know, I got to sleep at the back of the bus. I got given like 50 euros to go off and just like buy some lunch and walk through the streets. Like, you'd rock up, you set up the stage, you set up the show, but then all the other roadies would go and have a beer somewhere or go hang out and do this and do that. But you don't see that side.
Sometimes you can ask behind the scenes questions though. I like asking people what's on your rider.
Oh,
that's
that's a good
it,
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some interesting, funny writers. To be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, and you kind of like force them to
Yeah.
tell you stuff a little bit behind
Yeah.
the scenes.
Yeah, because you don't want to. Yeah, you've got to be really careful when answering that. I think sometimes when you catch people off guard, they're like, "Oh shit, I don't have like."
Or what rituals do you do before you go on stage? Because so many people
Yeah.
are superstitious. Or what warm-ups do you do?
That's it.
Yeah,
Like-
I think it's that meta element of it, right? It's like, how do you get into that space? How do you? And I think that's why I like talking to behind the scenes people, because it's like, how does this happen? How do you how do you make it happen? How do you get into it? You know,
Yeah, to actually make the magic.
yeah,
basically.
yeah, because I think that's something that's really overlooked. We go, oh, look at this beautiful thing that was done, and it's like, oh, that's amazing, but what about all the work that went into
And behind the
That's
scenes
it.
is usually horrific.
Yeah. Well,
It looks awful, but everything looks amazing in the final
it.
product.
it? Yeah,
But see, that's what
exactly.
Davo said. It's like as soon as you rock up, it might be like 4 a.m. in the morning. You got to get off the bus. You unpack the buses. You set up the stage. You do this. You do that, and you just don't stop working. But then when it's finished, it's like, you know, it's in a stadium. It's an amazing stage
Yeah.
for Simple Minds. But then as soon as they're finished and everyone leaves, then you pack that whole thing down again.
Yeah.
And it's just go, 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 and so full on.
Yeah. It's like, I love going to music festivals or like any kind of festival and watching the festival city arise. Like, I love seeing it come to life in front of you. It's awesome.
So we've only got 3 minutes left because we're going 15 minutes over. So where do you see Magazine 6000 going?
It's in
And
store for magazines.
yeah, what's going to happen?
I think we are getting the name is definitely out there. Publicists contact me every day, so it's
That's
getting,
really cool.
it's getting further out there. I would like to do more of the projects, like interviewing people in a similar fashion to this, kind of what Jay was
Yeah.
talking about previously as well. It's just a matter of time. I've got to find more balance in my life, and then we'll
all do.
get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this will go as long as I can be bothered and still love it, really. And I love it. So luckily, hopefully I'll still
Yeah.
be.
But it's a pretty cool reference.
But I can
though.
only do it when I've got people like Jay who are super enthusiastic
Yeah.
and, you know, support me, because I do feel bad when I can't get around to everything. We can't review everything. We can't talk about everything. We can't interview everyone. Like, I had to turn down an interview. Well, not really turn down, but it just didn't happen with a Logie winner recently. And
really?
like that hurt. Like, but I just didn't have the time.
But surely you can reschedule though, right?
No, this was in line with a certain release of something.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Hopefully in the future it will happen. I don't know, but
But see, similar thing for us as well, where it's like a band might be releasing a single, then I always try and book 2-3 months in advance so I know what the roster is.
Yeah.
But then at the same time to try and squeeze someone in, reorganize
Yeah.
things, and it's just like all over the place.
I will
So-
say, if anyone wants to send me press releases, it's info.magazine6000@gmail.com, and Instagram, Facebook, find us on there or send us a
Can you
DM.
put that in the comment section?
Oh, thank you. And if anyone wants to write as well, feel free to get in touch. I might rope you guys into do some reviewing of the music, I reckon.
That's a
I
potential
definitely
there.
know what's going on.
So then, just before we wrap up, so we've got like the process of like where you want to go with Magazine 6000, but then would you ever like want to monetize it or anything like that, or because it's just a passion project at the moment?
It's a
right?
passion project. Like I said at the start, I've got a habit of monetizing hobbies, so
Yeah.
it's got to be something to consider.
Because
And
do you put a lot of money into it at the moment, or
Only when the website needs maintenance or I want to do something, and I try to like put a little, bit of money away so I can do stuff, but sometimes it just doesn't happen.
yeah?
I
Do you
would
take
like.
donations.
Not at the moment. I might set up something called Buy Me a Coffee. I think that's it.
Okay.
It's like a little plugin you can put on your website where people can like send you
Yeah.
like $5 or something like that, which would probably go to website maintenance because I can't always get around to doing things.
Yeah.
Because it is a custom design as well. I do need to go back to the web developer who built it, and lucky he's awesome as well. But I would just love to keep creating the community as well, having more people reach out to
Keeping it
be
local and
involved,
keeping
yeah.
it fun.
Yeah.
And then have you ever thought about partnering with like some of the other established places? Because Express Magazine is still around, right?
I don't think a partnership would probably be something I'd be interested in.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe sponsorship, but it's just a matter of time of being able to, if I apply for grants, how am I going to find the time to do the acquittal for those kind of things? How am I going to find time to actually write these grants? It might happen. I might be able to work out more of a balance, but I also work full time, but I'm also a celebrant as well. And I take that very seriously. It's another interviewing skill. That's when I get to interview people a lot, is when I sit down and interview my couples. But yeah, well, I don't know. We'll just see. We'll just see.
Yeah, see what happens. Yeah.
For now, I think it's just part of the charm of it.
Yeah.
As long as people are wanting to promote things and as long as people are wanting to write, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, guys. Everyone listening, head over to magazine6000.com.au and check them out.
Just .com, I
That's
think.
it. Just .com.
I could be wrong.
That's
.com.au.
Oh God, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, wait, it is magazine6000.com, but your graphic has .com.au on it. Your logo.
That's
You should
true. That's
Fire the
true.
editor.
I should fire
Oh.
the
Troubleshooting live on the podcast.
I think if you put in both, I think I've got both domains, but don't try it now. Don't embarrass me.
All right. We'll do it off the
We'll do it after. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah,
for
no, it's
having
been
us.
awesome. This has been so good. It's been really like lots of fun.
Yeah, very meta.
And then we will see you guys next
And
week.
people keep an eye out for Jay's interview of Alex.
Yeah,
yes.
yes.
I'm interviewing the interviewer
Yes,
in a different platform.
yeah. No, we should do it on this, and well, we can work it out after, but we'll try and like hybrid or something like that.
Yeah.
And so next week we have an opening, so I will be booking someone very soon. So,
No one booked as of yet.
Mystery guest.
but the week
Yeah,
after,
it's a mystery.
that's it. But the week after, we've got Bromad coming on. So Bromad has just managed to crack Beatport's #1 on dubstep and Beatport's #1 on drum and bass as well,
Ooh,
Cool.
worldwide.
wow.
So yeah, a local
Yeah,
Perth
that's
producer
awesome.
that's just shot up to stardom basically. So
Yeah, nice.
hopefully
There you go.
that's it. Hopefully it'll be a hop, skip, jump for him, and then he'll be playing in LA and San Francisco and all around the world.
Oh, is
Hopefully.
it the Splendor lineup gets released in a few days?
Yeah, that's
We'll
it.
see you on that.
Yeah, you might be on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but we'll see you guys soon. So thank you very much.
Just before we go as well, I just want to say hi to Shanice and Lynn Ferguson. Thank you for
that's
joining
awesome.
us in the chat.
I love
Bless
that. Adorable.
And shout out to Lynn. And shout out to Shanice.
Hey, Mom, you're the best. Holly's mom, what a
Holly's
champ.
mum.
All right, we'll catch you guys soon. Catch
All
you.
right, guys. Ciao.
I got the eye.